Hello and welcome to a session on a very important topic of our lifetime by courtesy of CxO Global Forum, CxO Saudi Arabia, which is a platform of C-level executives, doers, thinkers, and strategists in Pakistan as well as in Saudi Arabia. My name is Ahmad Jalal. I'm the founder of Cordoba Ventures. Before that, I was an investment banker and then a private equity investor. Has been involved in some of the transactions in the Middle East, investing, as well as Vamda Capital in the initial days. And now I run a venture studios focused on healthcare, fintech, logistics. And one of our healthcare companies has now set up in Saudi Arabia, looking to take advantage of the opportunities here in Saudi Arabia. And so we have a very esteemed panel to discuss about the opportunities of Saudi Arabia as well as the challenges for startups, for technologists, for founders. And we have with us a very esteemed, very experienced, locally connected, locally experienced panel of speakers. So what is the Saudi opportunity? What is Saudi Vision 2030? I think Saudi Arabia has always had a lot going on for it. But I do think that combined with a good vision and good leadership since 2016 onwards, the real opportunity, the real potential is we're now seeing it live. And that is embodied in the Vision 2030, whose pure objective is to diversify the economy away from oil into investing in human capital, investing in infrastructure, in trade, in innovation. And that's where international investment, technology, ventures come into play. The beauty of the Saudi Vision 2030 is that not only it is visionary, it sets up a great direction, but at the same time, it is highly granular in terms of achieving its objectives, of what objectives to achieve. And I think if people who haven't read it should go and read the document because of the fact that it deals with the operational matters as well as the vision. So it envisions a society which is resilient, which is inclusive, which is open, but at the same time, it says, how are we going to achieve it? And one of the objectives is building 6 billion Saudi Riyal unicorns in Saudi. So it's very granular in that sense. It talks about volunteering, it talks about public service, but at the same time, it talks about that we have to create financially sustainable social enterprises that contribute 2.5% to GDP and create 250,000 jobs. And so the whole Saudi system, public sector and the private sector, is not only driven by the direction, but also by these milestones. Now, these milestones are across human development, healthcare, logistics, infrastructure development, for entertainment and leisure. And that is what is creating the huge business opportunity for founders, for investors in Saudi Arabia. So we are very happy. And I think this is done very well. As someone who's very much interested in history, in social policy, as well as economics, I can certainly see how all of those things come together. So we are here to discuss what are the opportunities in Saudi Arabia, from people who are already there. So, what are the top three in your way? In my first question to the panel is, what are the top three growth trends in Saudi Arabia? Is it technology adoption? Is it youth, demographics, surplus capital, or enhanced governance? And what are your top three growth sectors? What do you think are the sectors which are going to attract a lot of investment and a lot of returns? And I think I would invite, first of all, who should I invite? Mr. Hasan Jabarti, who is an investor, of course, in many startups himself, very much associated with healthcare, is a thinker, is a doer. So Hasan, please tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your experience as a local Saudi, how Saudi 2030 excites you, and also what are the top three growth trends, and also what are the three top growth sectors in your view? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me in this spectacular panel discussion. And I hope that at the end of the session, we get more and more information that we could go back home, analyze, and act upon. So what happened in the last 20 years in Saudi doesn't reflect even a pinch with the last 2 years and the last 6 months in Saudi Arabia. The ecosystem is boosting in a specific way that none country in the Middle East has been able to catch upon. The Saudi government, the Vision 2030, and even the public sector are interacting with these points that they have a mission to accomplish. And we in Saudi Arabia are very proud that we are stepping and moving towards accomplishing these steps in each single point of the vision. Now, going back on the sectors, or what are the majority segments that we focus on in the Saudi market, especially when we're talking about combining between the ecosystem of the startups investment and the normal trading. We are focused in Saudi in multi-sectors at the same time. As you can see, that logistics is one of them that we and our companies are focused on deadly, like in IoT, technology, software, and other points. Healthcare is a major aspect that which is not only in the private sector empowered, but also by the government. And the third one, which is related to the education. And these three elements are empowered also by the government and by the funds in the Saudi sector, private or government sectors. And these are the sectors that we are focused on the next vision. Why? Because logistics is the core of any business gate into the Saudi market or the GCC Middle East. The healthcare and the education was, since the last 20 years, a focus from the government in Saudi and other locations, but I'm speaking especially about the Saudi market. And now towards the education technology or the healthcare technologies and what could be built up from scratch as a startup into the ecosystem and build up to the government level.
Excellent. So your logistics and healthcare are your top picks, and definitely one can feel the momentum of Saudi at the moment. And as I said, this is maybe once in a lifetime. It's like being in the West, in the US West at the time of the railroads. You know, everything needed to be built, everything needed to be built big, and everything needed to be built now. So that's a 50-year bull market that probably we are in Saudi Arabia. Someone who's right next to Saudi Arabia has probably experienced in Dubai. And some people say Saudi, I don't know how Saudis feel about it, that Saudi is like Dubai in 2005 or maybe 2002. But of course, every market has its own dynamics. So Eva is the founder of Hashiona, which is a company that deals with patients of Hashimoto. It's a disease, a multiple winner of MIT Enterprise Forum, of UNDP Accelerator, CVC Impact Startup Award winner. So Eva, tell us about both your company and what is the opportunity for your company that you see in Saudi Arabia. And we will go back later in the second round about what are the challenges maybe for registration or information that you need to see. But tell us more about your company and the opportunities that you face in Saudi Arabia.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. First of all, Ahmed, thank you so much for having me. My name is Eva Galant, and I'm since 4 years founder of Hashiona. In Hashiona, we're focusing on helping patients with autoimmune disorders, specifically with Hashimoto and hypothyroidism. And we help them to get into clinical remission through behavioral change programs as an enhancement for the standard therapy. And I'm personally, I'm Polish, but I have a vast experience of running companies and living in UK, US, and also in Australia. And I'm relatively new to the GCC region and also to the market of Saudi Arabia. In fact, I came first time to Saudi Arabia last year for the Global Health Exhibition. And since that, I had a chance to visit a couple of times Riyadh. And the more I visit, the more I'm ensured that I want Hashiona in some part participate in this successful growth of Saudi Arabia and everything what's going on here, which you, Ahmad, mentioned previously. And when I was preparing myself for the panel, I actually highlighted 5 reasons why the Saudi market is specifically attracted for me as a Hashiona. And I will just come to this in the second, but I would like to first refer what you said about the difference between UAE, where I'm right now, and Saudi Arabia, that you said that it is kind of feeling like a Dubai in 2005. I'm not sure if this is a good comparison, but from what I learned so far, I understand that Saudi Arabia is 10 times more wealthy than the other Gulf Cooperation Council altogether, and it's also a much bigger country by size. So I think it is very natural. It is moving a little bit slower. However, given the resources and the potential Saudi Arabia has, it can easily outstrip everyone else, not only in a GCC region. So coming back to the reason why I think Hashiona should be in the Saudi Arabia market, there's 5 things that literally that I'm very attracted to. And first of all, is the size of the market itself is large enough and is very new enough to build a significant business here in Saudi Arabia. On top of it, what I learned, 80% of Saudi women have a problem with thyroid disorder, which is much higher factor than, for example, in US, only 1 out of 8 women, 12% of population struggle. So for me personally, having access to that market, it would be a huge advantage to succeed and to obviously, as an outcome, treat more patients. Now, the next reason where I consider is a young and highly educated population, especially with the women now leading the tech and the business in many ways. I would love to tap into the environment. Now, the other thing is what I really noticed during all of my visit is the Saudi government and the other agencies around are very welcoming to foreign startups, and they're trying to do everything to attract those startups to be a part of local ecosystems. They're helping with all of this variety of the programs. I hope today we can discuss more about it. And yeah, that's what I want to say. Everyone, not only like officially, but also as a person, everyone I met in Saudi Arabia, they're very welcoming people, very accommodating, trying to help, and obviously very smart. All of this encouraged me to visit more and in some part bring myself the business to the country. Next reason is the infrastructure, which is super new and rapidly expanding as well, which enable access to the population and all of this, operating into the business effectively. Also, something very specific for Hashiona, again, world-class medical facilities, which I understand is a part of the Vision 2030 to also even further develop those facilities. So as you see, all of those reasons are very encouraging from not only myself, but I think many talents from around the world to come and run the businesses in Saudi Arabia. Look, I mean, the kind of also the social change and the opening of the society which is happening right now. It is very welcoming. Vastly and specifically for myself as a woman, right? When the things are so important to give me a chance to be a leader in the tech industry, that the country is super safe, so I can walk anytime in the street and don't really worry about anything else. So all of this is just basically creating a very good ecosystem, just very encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you for a very organized rundown of this of the opportunity, and definitely women consumers. I do remember in 2005, Goldman Sachs started talking about how women are previously decided a lot of consumer spending in household, but like 30 to 40% of car purchase decisions were also now being controlled by women. So,
Yes.
So what it required was a lot more women have a lot more wealth, And in fact, the women billionaires and women wealthy was a bigger opportunity than China and India combined together. I remember it at that time, about that was 10 years ago. So definitely, I think the same trend is happening in China. Market size you mentioned. I think one thing very important for emerging for markets is consistency of policies and government consistency. You know, you have a great opportunity, and then you come in, you put in your investment, you do things, and then the policy changes. So I was recently working in another emerging market on the privatization, and the biggest risk for investors is inconsistency of policy. They can deal with the market risk, but they cannot deal with the government changing its mind and changing its different mood. And I think that is one thing that's positive, that the policy, Vision 2030, has been set, and it's pretty much going in that same direction. And I think that's very important for attracting startups or investors. And lastly, you mentioned medical facilities. Definitely, the Sulaiman Al Habib recently got listed. It's a $28 billion valuation. You're not going to find a $28 billion healthcare facility anywhere else in the world. It's at 52 times earnings, huge. But that shows you that there is a lot more spend. But at the same time, and the spend is increasing. At the same time, there is an opportunity to not make Saudi like the US healthcare market, which is overpriced, overspent. And if there's one thing that can bankrupt,
let's definitely not do this.
Yeah, definitely not do that. So that's why we need affordable healthcare technology platform. If there's one thing that can bankrupt US, it's not anything, it's their Medicare and Medicaid. And that's because there's a lot of spend. And there is a need in Saudi to make the healthcare spend more efficient in that sense. And so a lot of scope for international malls to do that. So thank you very much. And we'll come back to your experience.
Ahmed, if I can only add one more thing to what you
Yes,
said. People are usually not aware, because you mentioned about women right now, is more and more women billionaires, and there are more like playing important role in society. And I experienced that myself in Saudi, especially meeting like women professors, MPs, running huge holdings companies. But we are, from the other hand, we are not aware that most of health decisions for the family, as the smallest unit, are made by women.
Yes.
So that is very important. That's what we find. We usually say women health is the whole family health, because if women's health is not there, then the whole family is struggling and suffering, basically. That's just for me. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for making that addition. So I next go to Khaled. Khaled and I have not met, though we've had some connections, because I used to I was involved in the launch of Vamda way back in 2010 in Amman, Jordan, with Owais and Khaldoon at that time, and Tom Speechley, and also Vamda Capital, the setup of it. I was involved in that. We've not crossed paths per se, but and also Nuwa Capital is the company that he's founded, he's run, one of the investing companies. Sees is, of course, founder, is a very dear friend and former colleague of mine. So Khaled is someone who's very experienced as a venture investor across GCC, but also one of the investors and backers is Al Fasliya Group in Saudi Arabia, which is a very distinguished and a big name. So Khaled, tell us about the opportunity as you see now, then as your opportunity as you see 7-10 years ago, and what are the top 3 sectors that are of interest for you? You're on mute. I think you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. No, I was saying thank you all for thank you very much for having us and hosting us all on the panel today for this sort of very topical and important discussion. So just a bit of background on us, as you said, so I used to be the managing partner of Vamda Capital, so I helped launch the fund, which was one of the earliest and largest venture capital funds of its kind in the region at that time in 2013. And then a few years later, myself and some of my colleagues, we spun out to build Nuwa Capital, which is a VC investment platform where multi-stage, multi-product approach. So we have an early stage, $100 million early stage fund. Then we're in the process of launching some additional funds that are looking at different stages of the life cycle of a company. Our first fund's quite early stage. So we go up to Series A. We've invested already in up to 40 companies from this fund. Throughout my career, I've invested in about 300 businesses. I think most notably well-known to consumer brands, mostly consumer internet in emerging markets, primarily GCC, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Southeast Asia. I think in terms of most well-known companies, probably like Careem, Mum's World, Insider, those types of businesses. More recently from Nuwa, we invested in some other brands such as Aiwa, which is an online eyewear business, Kalo, which is really big in Saudi now. In terms of like big opportunities we see for the region, I think, and for Saudi in particular, I think, just to echo what my colleagues here are saying, I think this is a once in a generation transformational moment, a real sea change in the nature of our ecosystem. We have this kind of incredible unleashing of entrepreneurial, both unleashing of entrepreneurial talent existing in the kingdom, but also people coming into the kingdom to kind of unlock the opportunity there. Coupled with regulatory reform and growth, the availability of capital, very positive secular trends between demographics and other things. So it's honestly one of the most kind of like exciting moments in the kind of growth of the region. And as someone also mentioned, like the advent of much more social liberalism really helps fuel that underlying entrepreneurial movement. So super exciting time. I think sectors-wise, I think the sectors we focus on are kind of as follows, and they reflect where we think the opportunities are. We invest across the region, but Saudi is obviously a core market for us. Beyond healthcare, I think one opportunity, I think my colleagues mentioned a lot of things that we also focus on, but one core opportunity we see that's coming is in personalized medicine and the integration of wearables and at-home testing and everything around that into a kind of more holistic wellness opportunity. And I think the Gulf will be at the forefront of that, given the relatively high levels of different chronic conditions and in the Gulf in general. So I think there's a big opportunity around a more cohesive wellness approach. So I think we see opportunities there. The other is fintech. We still think there's Tabi was one of my previous investments, which is a buy now, pay later platform. So you saw the explosive growth in buy now, pay later and consumer credit that's fueling consumer credit in the region as a whole, and Saudi in particular. We think that's a function of the fact that the financial services sector is still quite underdeveloped and is being leapfrogged by new business models like buy now, pay later. There's probably like a large number of other segments and offerings that are also coming in that area. So we think it's super exciting. So fintech more broadly, whether it's for serving individuals or B2B for firms that are fall under the radar of traditional financial services firms. And then lastly, one segment we're interested in is what we call the sort of the consumer brands. We think traditionally the GCC has mostly imported consumer brands, whether that's in fashion or F&B, etc. I think that's starting to change in a big way, with a big focus on locally created, locally built brands that speak to kind of local preferences. The examples that I always give are Kalo in Saudi, which is a healthy meal subscription business, which grew very, very quickly, and the other is Aiwa, which is also in our portfolio, which is a omni-channel eyewear retailer, and it's their own brands. And this is where founders and entrepreneurs identify segments in the market where they can build products that speak to local requirements, both at the price point and quality, and align them with what the market really wants in terms of product design. and then also retail that on an omni-channel way, both online and offline. So I would say those are kind of the most interesting markets. I think secondarily, I think there's going to be huge opportunities around real estate and prop tech. So as that market heats up, especially with mortgage, sort of the growth in home ownership and the boom in new development on the residential side. So I think there's a lot of opportunities around these kind of core sectors, I would say, is where we're focusing on, both in Saudi and the GCC in general.
Thank you, and they're very insightful. And I do agree with that the consumer brands, locally developed consumer brands, and they don't have to be tech, even consumer products could be, will face a huge bull market and growth and demand growth. And you mentioned personalized medicine and wellness and at-home testing. The region has highest level of, cardiovascular disease incidence. Plus, of course, high level of wealth would want, a better lifestyle, a longer living, and so a lot of spend would happen to that. So thank you very much for those insights, and we'll come back to, what are the challenges in accessing the opportunities for both local as well as international investors. So with that, I'll go to Ali Alsaileek, who I met recently, just very, very briefly, at the Gaia AI dinner around Leap. We had a very brief exchange at that time. So Ali is at the Applied Innovation Institute and is in business development, has done a lot of work in terms of attracting both companies as well as investors into Saudi Arabia. So tell us, Ali, about your experience as a Saudi for the Saudi 2030 vision, how it has transformed the opportunity, and what do you see as the top trends and the top sectors in Saudi Arabia to invest in for the next 5 to 10 years?
Ahmad, thank you for having me in this panel. I think speaking about opportunities and Vision 2030, let me tell you at the beginning how Vision 2030 have changed my life personally. I used to be an airline pilot living in Miami. I came back to Saudi in 2019 when COVID hits. I saw a huge opportunity. I saw a huge gap. I couldn't resist. I couldn't get out of Saudi since that day. So I started my entrepreneurial journey as I founded a company in interior design, and that was my first venture. Then I founded a company in tourism development, and it's one of the fastest growing tourism development company in Saudi Arabia. It has been incubated by the Ministry of Tourism and the Tourism Development Fund. And from that experience, which gave me a first-hand experience with multiple incubators and accelerators program here in Saudi, where we end up creating a scale-up program where we scout startups from all over the world to help them here in Saudi Arabia with business development, commercialization, and soft landing. And back to the sectors and trends and industries that we see a huge opportunity in, which is, I think, tech and AI, tourism, real estate, and also construction technology. Saudi Arabia is going through a huge construction transformation. We've been building huge projects, especially in NEOM area, and all tier 2 and tier 3 cities are going into huge development as well. And I think there is a huge need for construction technology nowadays.
So you, in your view, AI and construction is are areas of interest. So my question to you in that sense, let's delve a bit more. So all of these construction materials, AI, require a certain degree of talent, high-end engineering, which is beyond infrastructure. It's about people. So how do you see the opportunity in Saudi Arabia in terms of the right talent, whether local or international, being available locally to build these ventures, complex engineering, complex programming? How do you see that roll out in Saudi Arabia?
I think that's why we have lots of incentives nowadays to attract these talents to come here to Saudi and provide them with everything they need to succeed. And I've been working in this, and I've seen lots of talent moving from all over the globe and coming to Saudi nowadays.
So I do agree. I think if you look at some of the talent that they've attracted at NEOM, and other places. At the top level, I saw someone who's a regional head of CxO, global regional head of CxO in North America. So you're able to attract top talent. But my experience of running big companies is that you need 2-3 star performers, but you need hundreds of good quality coders. Your rank and file needs to be very good and very strong and have a lot of depth in that. Apple have what Steve Wozniak, and Steve Wozniak was a star coder, is a genius guy, but you can't build a whole company, whole ecosystem on the back of very few good top talent. You need to create a lot of mid-level engineers, administrators, finance people. So how is Saudi looking into that? Eva, you're raising your hand, but I'd like to go to all the others about the same question. It's a good opportunity, but how do you scale it, and how are you able to scale it properly? Over to you.
So, do you want me to answer, or do you want the other?
Please go ahead first, and then we go back to Ali, since the question was addressed to Ali. He's dealing with AI and scouting. So please go ahead.
From my understanding, I think it's good that you mentioned this potentially lack of talent. I think that the government is actually working on it by developing and investing in its own people. So I think we are in the moment right now when there is a lot of attraction of the talent from abroad, when you mention US and so on, but also like a lot of investment going on in the country to create more developers, not only developers, but also different jobs opportunities. You mentioned Apple. From what I learned recently, Apple even have a special program for women, creating and educating women developers in one of the university in Riyadh. I think it's King Saud, maybe, if I'm not wrong. So, the things going on, that even the big companies are coming with their programs to the Saudi Arabia market right now. And I think when you mentioned previously the bull market, I wouldn't really agree with it, because if you say bull market, it's kind of sounds a little bit like short-term and very transactional, which I think is kind of opposite what the Saudi government is trying to build, like as a long-term vision, and developing the local talents in comparison to the other Gulf countries, which are exporting only talents, right? I think it's not the same, and it's very like long-term play and long-term game. Thank you.
So you're right. It's not it's a structural, what you can call it, a structural secular bull market. You can call it. It's not like any because it's probably a 20 to 50 year phenomenon that you have. So back to you, Ali. How do you see the talent at the middle management, the rank and file coders that you need in order to build a scalable enterprise?
So I agree with Eva regarding the local talent, and also, as she mentioned, we have the Apple Academy here for developers with I think collaboration with Prince Noura University of Riyadh, which is the female university here in Riyadh. We also have multiple academies for coders which deliver literally high quality developers, and we've seen Saudi developers nowadays delivering like great deep tech technology. Yesterday we had an event for deep tech here. We had like a couple of amazing startups with an amazing solution. Tonight as well, we will have another deep tech event here in the garage as well regarding the same thing. So I think we have like both, like the local talent, and we are still attracting like some of the best talent from all over the world to be here.
Excellent. And Hasan, do you have anything to add on to that? And I'll refer back to Khaled about building scalable technology businesses with talent, or homegrown talent.
Yes, I do agree with both colleagues, Eva and Ali, and I do believe that the long-term vision for the education and the infrastructure of the people, especially citizens in Saudi, wasn't within the last couple of years. It was back in the 70s and 80s, but with a lower scale, lower numbers. But back then, we have members in the families, well educated in multi-sectors, in the government sector or in the private sector as well. When they came back, we had the first generation, and one of them was Dr. Sulaiman Al-Habib back in the 70s and 80s. Came, and now he has one of the biggest, largest medical centers in not only the region, but he's one of the listed top 3 billionaires in the global market as a medical background. So the well educations, the knowledge transfer is well planned since back in the 70s and 80s. But now we have a lot of opportunities to push it more. If you remember back then in King Abdullah's period, it was one of the largest period that education abroad was an era, and came back with us more than 250,000 students from US to China and between, with multi-sectors of knowledge, not only previous sectors that like medicine, engineering, or normal practices that we were used to be, but now with new technologies that now Saudis are presenting their knowledge inside colleges and institutions back in these countries as well, not let alone in the Saudi market. And we're proud of these colleagues and citizens spread all over the globe. Now back to the knowledge transfer related to the Saudi ecosystem. We were talking about like one of the biggest petroleum company, if not the biggest, is Aramco. More than 70,000 employees, majority, nearly more than 95% are Saudis, from top level CEOs to down level working into the sites. And all of these are Saudis trained back in the 70s and the 60s by US Americans on board. And nowadays, it's Saudis to Saudis. And it's a knowledge-based transfer that we need in each sector in the Saudi market. So we started from a startup as a tech or non-tech, moving towards the transfer of knowledge and moving to get experts from the global market to the Saudi industry. And we do believe that the investment at the first stage is the investment into knowledge and into people. So yes, I do agree with you, Ahmed, that one of the main pillars that we need to focus on is the knowledge of transfer and onto multi-sectors.
Khaled, do you want to comment on that? You're mute.
I keep doing that. Sorry about that. So there is a large depth of, I think, intrinsic talent based in Saudi, and I think, like as everyone mentioned, like this is the end result of years of government policy of like educating, the youth by subsidizing university studies abroad, postgraduate and everything from undergraduate to postgraduate, which I think now that there is a liberalization of the overall economy, I think that creates a great opportunity to kind of use a lot of this talent locally, and I think you're starting to see that kind of strategic dividend be reaped. There is also like government policy around relaxing or just making it much more streamlined to import like high-end talent into the country, and I think you're seeing different initiatives around attracting expat workers, particularly in knowledge sectors, to kind of come set up their businesses in a much more easy and streamlined way in the kingdom. So I think there's more and more of that, and I think someone mentioned Karaj earlier, which is like this kind of massive co-working space in Saudi. I think you see there, large number of companies, many of them from all over the world, kind of coming to set up and explore opportunities in Saudi. So I think that's very positive and very encouraging.
I certainly, when I went and met some government officials at lean, quasi-government organizations, certainly the quality of talent was very impressive. And this is what I was told, is that it's years of investing in scholarships, going abroad, people going abroad, and then they're coming back. And that's what we see. And certainly it's very impressive, even public sector as well as startups, that kind of talent that's there. I think what we have Eva, who's coming in, thinking of launching in Saudi. So why not we make a case study of Eva's launch in Saudi and ask our expert advisors as to what is the best strategy for Eva to launch. And I think that would be, will be useful. It'll be specific and better than me ask a series of questions. But just a few things is it better to go it as a own, set up your own company, or get in as a JV partner in in Saudi with the local partner, like 50-50 or something else? Is it how difficult it is, the local laws? What are the do's and don'ts of local employment laws and hiring of local teams? So if any one of you want to be a coach or a startup advisor, I'll start with Hasan, since you have said in your description as startup ecosystem advisor, as how would you advise Eva to set up a venture or launch a venture in Saudi Arabia? And Eva, do feel free to ask any questions.
Perfect. I'll be very grateful to get an advice, guys, from you, considering your profile and your experience. So yeah, I'm all ears now.
Okay. Very good. So tell me about your startup and your project, and how soon are you going to jump into Saudi?
Yeah, okay. So we are a seed stage startup that historically raised $780,000 from investors from a couple of markets, from Europe and also from Silicon Valley. We're part of the Draper University program. We ran our first patient trial studies and we got really good result. And we are right now working on public it as a medical paper. And we serve for patients digitally in both Europe and US. What we're doing basically is a digital therapeutic kind of solution where we basically help people with Hashimoto and hypothyroidism to navigate with all of this disease and help them to create a specific step-by-step organized remission program. We are also connected with third parties wearables devices, so those users can pull the data from whatever devices that they're using. And in the future, depends on the market. For example, in the UK as well, we are integrated with some blood test, home test kits that can be distributed to the home test. So that's what we're doing basically. I'm happy to.
So how big is the size of the market for your product or the startup itself within the region or the global market?
Yeah. So globally, we say 1 out of 8 women struggle with thyroid disorder. So it's a niche, but it's kind of a big niche if you think about it. And from what I found on the Saudi specifically, is 18% of women are affected. And they're from different reasons. There may be genetic reasons, there may be environmental factors, but that's the data.
Very good. So we have in Saudi, we have 3 programs that we could incubate the healthcare sector directly into the Saudi market. One related to the Ministry of Health, one related to the Ministry of Telecommunication, and the third one related to a university sector. And these 3 will work as an incubator for your startup to move softly within the business model and change movement into the Saudi market. You could submit directly as a license of an entrepreneur, either as a branch from your whatever they established the company, or as individual directly in the Saudi market as entrepreneurs. And you will directly have a license of an entrepreneur license, of course, which is different than the normal license financially and empowerment by the government itself. Financially, you could save nearly a quarter of a million Saudi riyals within the next 5 years if you have applying as a entrepreneur startup license. And the advantage is that you're into the ecosystem in the Saudi market and empowered by either the university or the Ministry of Health directly, or one of the incubators in the Saudi market. There are 16 other programs that if you think to reallocate in the Saudi market, you will have the privilege in having not only direct funds, but also indirect funds to support the startup and the founders, and also building the whole team in Saudi and abroad.
That sounds fantastic. So in summary, what you advise is like the best way is to go from one of the program, either with Ministry of Health or one of the accelerator.
Yes, there are already built up programs that we can submit directly, and being as an incubator, you can have directly as a license of an entrepreneur in the Saudi market. It's better, well connected to all of the arms that you will find a fast-track movement into the sectors, and especially the stakeholder that you will need in the future, building up your analytics, case studies, and even the business model as well.
That's fantastic, Hasan. I would be very grateful if you can after the webinar share some links with me. I'm definitely gonna look on it because I'm looking to relocate to the region permanently.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
I'll then now refer to Ali. And Ali,
Yeah.
given that you're a scout, tell us a little bit about
Yeah, that's why.
Saudi teams and exactly, setting up teams and any other local employment related matters one should be careful about. So whatever the advice that you can give to Eva and to our audience.
So we created our program exactly for the same case like what Eva is having right now. When you want to move to Saudi, you want to have access to the market in Saudi, but still there's a lots of dynamic to understand in the Saudi market. So that's where we come in and give you these kind of services that helps you to commercialize your product here in Saudi, helps you with multiple areas, and also one of the main things that we do with our startups, that we identify who can be their client, who can be their partners, who can be like the entities and the stakeholders that they can work with, and then we can give them like as a soft approach where they can go there and close the deal with them. As we also help you with structuring the deal and also closing the deal with this partner. Also, sometimes when you have some sort of services that might work in the market that you work in, for example, let's say in the US market or in the Europe market, but it needs some pivoting to work in the Saudi market. That's where we bring our expertise to help you to pivot your service or your product to be able to work in the Saudi market.
That sounds fantastic. I think we definitely should talk more about that opportunity, Ali, as well. After the webinar. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. So, and with Khaled, I want to ask, recently we saw Khazna from Egypt enter into Saudi market through a partnership, I think with Khwarizmi Ventures. So tell us about, entering a market as a joint venture with a fund or the local family business group, the pros and cons of it. How does it make your life easier, more difficult, or any other factor that you have for businesses that have grown from UAE or from outside into Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. So I think that whether to enter directly or through JV or through partnership, look, I tend to have a bias for kind of encouraging companies to enter directly, not to kind of have local joint ventures generally, wherever that is in the world, unless absolutely necessary. And maybe we can talk about the areas where that is kind of like important to have a JV partner. I think that, you don't want to create kind of complexity in your operation and in your governance where you have, subdividing the value of your business into kind of substructures. I feel like that's the kind of old way of doing business, like something that was pioneered really in the, in the 70s and 80s. But I think now with I think the need for that is less, and I think there's actually like the overall trajectory is towards companies just kind of setting up directly and having kind of full foreign ownership and moving that direction. Having said that, there are some areas where I think it's really important to have like a local partner, particularly in kind of regulated areas or people with kind of very intimate knowledge of a specific subsector. But again, I would encourage founders to raise money into a holdco, so not for a specific geographically specific entity. There are good, examples of where that exception can be made, where you do want to have a kind of a carve out for a local JV, whether Saudi or elsewhere. But I think on the whole, you want to maintain kind of cohesiveness in your cap table, in your structure, and you have it all in one place so that everyone's incentive is aligned towards kind of making the business bigger as a whole rather than one segment over another. Obviously, like I said, some exceptions to that, particularly in heavily regulated areas, and others where there might be kind of a strong kind of strategic dividend for doing that, and then you can figure out a good way to do that. And I think increasingly Saudi and the Saudi is becoming a much easier place to be able to set up without the need for kind of local partners per se, in the kind of more traditional sense. So yeah, so I think there is still some complexity. It's still not as seamless as like other places in the Gulf, but it's trending absolutely in the right direction. And I think in the next couple of years, it will be almost like a turnkey solution to come set up very quickly. Foreign ownership not being an issue, and having structures that encourage more and more in direct investment there.
If I can add something what Khaled said, I would definitely agree. From my perspective, as an early stage startup, I would be rather a little bit worried to set up a JV with other subject, mostly because of the complexity of the cap table. So we as an international startup who having already investor from different countries, I even say sometimes it's too much international. This is a lot of complex already. So I wouldn't like to add on top of it. However, it's always about the right partner, right? So if you find the right partner, that could be something which would be very attractive for startups. In our case, for example, what we are missing really in Europe and US is like the access to a lot of data that we can build our algorithm on top of it. So for example, we have a partner who can provide us some anonymous medical data. We can build our algorithm even further. That would be something that we probably would consider. Thank you.
So, picking up on that point, Khaled, and we are now coming into the closing because coming end of the hour and almost iftar time here. My question is that, look, in Indonesia is a very interesting market. It's a very successful market. They've produced multiple unicorns and highly successful technology companies. But it is a market that is primarily a local Indonesian market. Founders and a lot of the networks are very much local. So the question is then, when you go into sales, when you go into scaling, having a Saudi co-founder, as you know, Kareem also had a Saudi co-founder,
Yeah,
a third founder was Saudi,
yeah.
or absolutely, and also the local networks, language. Is it really? Can you really avoid having a Saudi co-founder or a Saudi JV realistically, and go it alone, or realistically you have to go with a Saudi co-founder, or a JV partner?
Yeah, I think like you would need Saudi partners of some description for sure. I mean, I think that's not my point. Today that you don't need a partner. It's just the method of partnership, which is the kind of like subdividing the structure with a JV. Having a Saudi founder, Saudi co-founder, Saudi general manager, team on the ground. I think that's all critical. You have to do that. You can't do it from abroad. You need local knowledge, local know-how, local partnership. But I think the way to do that is to kind of integrate it all within the structure. A co-founder would be great. Otherwise, having the right team in place and the right shareholders as well across the organization, the top core, rather than just for Saudi, I think it really matters. So if you have an entity that is interesting in partnering with you, I would say, bring them into the whole structure. Don't bring them only into like a Saudi focused structure, just to align all the incentives properly. But you do need that partnership. I agree totally. I think now you're on mute.
I am now. I'm. So Ali, is there anything that you'd add in terms of the constraints companies have in setting up, scaling in Saudi, setting up? I always find that anywhere setting up teams is always very challenging. Aligning, incentivizing them, ESOPs, carry points, and all of those things. So if you can talk a little bit about those, because we're talking about setting up a local team and how do you incentivize them?
Yeah, I think from the discussion, we see the value of the program that we're bringing in. So one of the things that we really focus on is we don't want you to worry about business development or commercialization. As a founder, as a founding team, just focus on delivering the technology. our team will deal with the business development and commercialization for you here in Saudi market. So this is the main focus that we will do. We have the team here. We have the know-how in the local market. So that's what I would like to add, or to encourage founders to go through partnership like this type of partnership, where they can help them to like access the market faster and easier.
Excellent. And Hasan, some of your points about launching and any other point that the founders should be wary of in launch in Saudi, and how can we solve them?
So just to give you an example, I'm also advising in one of the venture builders in Saudi called PMS. And the majority of these startups coming to Saudi, they think if they just copycat whatever business model in their country, it's going to be doing well all at this, but it's not the case. So even the business model from scratch, they need to know the market, the language of the market, the behavior of the market itself, and how to penetrate. Things related not only for the fintech, logistic, I'm talking about all aspects and segments in the Saudi market. They need to understand it in the behavior, then jumping in. Now jumping with a partner as a JV, or jumping in solo with the same team, that's not something related to the same topic or with the same company. But at the end, it comes back case by case, depending on the startup itself. But definitely, for sure, studying the market, studying the business model, if it's going to be applicable or not, that's the biggest barrier that I see. Even as close as Egypt or UAE startups jumping into the Saudi market, they need more and more analysis of the behavior of the market itself.
Great. I think I've been. There are some lots of questions which we've not gone through on the comments from the viewers. One of the questions from Khurram Shahzad, I would ask Hasan if you can address that. How are legacy businesses transforming for Saudi Vision 2030? How are they impacted, and how has there been any support from Saudi government to facilitate this transformation? You know, Saudi is known as big family businesses. They are the engines of growth. So how are they changing? And I do know that some of them are setting up, venture funds, joint venturing, setting up. Most of these venture funds have Saudi or conglomerate backups. But what is your view with how are they changing? How are they attuning to the change vision under 2030?
So we've seen a lot of great examples in the Saudi market. Family businesses have been adapting the change, the digital transformation. And not only this, they have issued and established also funds to establish to the new era and to the investment, either which applies in their sector and growing their sector as well, or being established as a side business arm with their establishment. And sadly, we've seen the opposite. Some of the biggest family businesses within the last 20, 30 years have been demolished totally and vanished from the market because of not adapting not only the vision, but the new technologies and the startup ecosystem and how to get use of it 100%. So we've seen both case studies, but the beauty about it, the new generations that are supporting the second or the first generation from the family businesses are well aware of the global market and how to adapt. And these are the heroes who are changing and adapting through the segment as well.
Last question from the comments from the viewers from Saif Diwan. What are the major challenges facing successful realization of Saudi Vision 2030, particularly in terms of economic diversification, social reform, inclusion, attracting foreign investment? Ali, would you tackle this? Like, what are the?
I think in terms of attracting foreign investment, this is something that I face on daily basis. I meet with people on daily basis that they want to come to Saudi and they want to inject money in the market and they want to invest in here. So honestly, with the huge change happening, the huge transformation of Vision 2030, I don't see any challenge at the moment, especially in Riyadh and like. Even in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, I've seen like foreign investment coming all over the place in the kingdom nowadays.
Excellent. Thank you. So with that, parting thoughts from all the panelists. I'll go let Eva go last so you can evaluate the kind of advice she got from all the panelists. She can evaluate that. But Khaled, if you can go first, and Ali, and then Hasan, and then we'll go to Eva with the closing remarks about where we are with Saudi Vision 2030. What are the ways to access the opportunity, and what are the things to avoid?
Yeah, I think just in summary, basically, this is a really interesting time, exciting time. I think, everything seems to be moving in the right direction. I think, we're quite excited about continuing to invest heavily across the region, particularly out of Saudi. So yeah, so I think generally really positive, exciting opportunities ahead.
Ali?
Yeah, I think we cannot keep up with the change of Riyadh. I think 5-10 years from now, I don't know where we are heading, but I can see that we're gonna need a lot of industries in the future. So I encourage everybody and I invite them to participate in this vision.
Excellent. And Hasan?
So these days, the visa is very easy to apply and submit. I encourage anyone and everyone to come to see a football match with the Ronaldo approach. Come and see the Riyadh Festival season. Come shopping, come enjoy the weather, south and north. I mean, whatever your approach is, come and visit Saudi, the first approach. See the Saudi market. It's 13 locations and properties. All of these locations has different people, different food, different culture, and under one country, one flag. But we all encourage the whole Saudi vision. And one of the amazing things that I always give a story to anyone I meet, that the Saudi vision was not forced to the people, but it was literally digested by all ages in the Saudi citizen and part of this country. We thought that it was going to be difficult to understand. We lived it, we're implementing it, and we're living the future right now.
I think I want to add to what Hassan says in terms of Saudi Arabia has a huge diversity in culture, landmarks, geography, and everything. You can see multiple things in Saudi. Another thing regarding the vision, I think this vision represents our dreams as citizens. We haven't had somebody or someone that can represent our dreams till this vision came in. So that's why you see with like each individual in Saudi believes in the vision and they are working hard to achieve it.
True.
I think there's nothing more I can add what my fellow participant already said. But during the leap, I was in one of the panel in the Ministry of Investment, and I heard a very interesting statement. They describe Saudi Arabia as a kingdom of opportunity. And I think it's really beautiful, and it really is. This is what indeed it is. It's the kingdom of opportunity. So I will finish with this. Thank you so much for having me here. I really enjoyed the panel. Also to Ali, Hasan, and Khaled. I would love to continue those discussions afterwards. Really learn a lot as well. And on top of it, I think because we focus today a lot about technology, AI, because we are all related to it, medical stuff. But I think Ali made point previously. I think Ali, correct me if you're wrong, but you said one of your companies related to tourism. I think we should also emphasize how beautiful Saudi Arabia is as a country and also have the potential to develop the tourism industry. I've recently been to Edge of the World, and it's really, really stunning. I am looking forward to also visit Ula, Red Sea, and many other places. So let's just finish with this accent as well. Saudi Arabia is not only about technology, it's also a beautiful country.
I agree with you. And the reason why we created this tourism development company, because we have noticed that the diversity of Saudi geographics, and we have noticed that there is so much landmarks that doesn't have accessibility or infrastructure or like surfaces. So that's why we are developing these landmarks so it can be accessible to everybody.
No, absolutely, and I think that's true. There's a lot of diversity, both cultures, people in Saudi Arabia. The history of Saudi Arabia, the Arab people, is also quite rich. Adnan and Kahtan, where all the Arabs come from, and even I went to Abha, which is very green. It doesn't look like Saudi Arabia. You go there, it's green valleys, lush green valleys. It's not the image of Saudi Arabia. So I think the image of Saudi Arabia is changing. I think the region is going to be better off as a result of that, because Saudi is such a big engine, it's such a big market, and so much of wealth is going to be created, so much innovation is going to happen. That's not going to just propel itself. It's going to lift the whole GCC, even the MENA region. Anywhere who wants to be part of the opportunity, I think it needs patience. I think it needs to be understanding of the local culture, local dynamics. Saudi has a very rich history, and of course it's changing, and transformation of course takes time. But as Hasan mentioned, that this has happened very quickly. But of course, along the way, a lot of good companies, startups, projects are going to succeed, and I think they're going to propel the whole region forward. So once again, thank you very much, all the panelists, Ali, Khaled, Eva, and Hasan, for your contribution, and thank you very much for the CxO forums, the CxO Saudi Arabia, and hopefully they organize similar exchanges of great value, of knowledge exchange, ideas exchange in the future. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.